That's what all this matrix of lies is to do with this. David Icke and other people, God love them, they've done fantastic work. They're not bringing this out enough.
Absolutely.
I so agree. Can I come in here?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just to bring the focus back to the pagan religions, the New Age, define it as you will. It strikes me that this very question that you're posing here, and I so agree with everything that I've just heard. We can take that question. We have an international chosen leader for example, the Druid orders around the UK and Europe. One springs to mind, Philip Carr-Gomm from Obod, the Druid order. I was with them 20 years ago and pointing out then how the very core principles, the good principles, were being used by good people, but for what you might call an evil purpose. And this concept was never got by them then. I think it would be very good to get him on, perhaps Mike or anybody, invite Philip Carr-Gomm to come on at some point and discuss the very nature of Druidry. I know he's a minefield of knowledge about it, because I believe that it's being misused, and I believe I've identified how, in very practical, on the ground terms here. But yeah, sorry to butt in there.
Absolutely.
But it really is, this pagan and Christian issue seems to be bubbling up, and the more that this comes to the streets, the more it is actually having real effects on the ground. I'm in touch with people all the time who are discussing these issues and asking the question, what can we do? So can I ask you, Michael, when the time comes, for I think it will, when you are perhaps on the BBC, or that a lot of the leading truth movement people are going to be taken into the mainstream in some way, as you've pointed out. When you are in front of the cameras, would you see an opportunity perhaps to make a killer point? If you could make a killer point now, what would it be?
Well, it depends. This is an ongoing thing in the life of a professional like me, who at the same time loathes mainstream. I prefer things like this. But with one hand, of course, I loathe that mainstream stuff, but at the same time, you have to think about maybe it would be good to go on. When I have gone on in the past, and believe me, you couldn't imagine how many opportunities you get to come on mainstream stuff. And I turn it down because it has to be, there's a bunch of factors. I'm an extremely weird kind of person, so I go by my own intuitions with these kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, it depends. It depends on who it is. With one point, you've got the big placard in front of you. It's CBS, it's BBC. But at the same time, you do have individuals. Didn't Graham Hancock come from within that tradition? So again, I'm not so close-minded or prejudiced to say that within those organizations, a really good stuff, a good person who believes in your work, but we deal that in minutiae when it comes about. I'll look at it and chalk that out at the time. Although my general inclination is to just avoid it like the plague. That's why I created my own channels on YouTube, and I do my own stuff as much as I can. Absolutely. When we did Architects of Control, big organizations wanted to take that and showcase it and buy it up and do all sorts of things with it. And we just told them, no, thanks, but no thanks, And basically, I prefer to keep things under my own auspices. I don't deal with Amazon. I don't deal with Facebook, MySpace, or any of these groups. I don't have my stuff sold on other sites because I don't think it's necessary. Because I have things in reverse. I believe that when people are ready, they come to my work. I don't need to be going out and shoving anything down their throats or trying to talk to a mass audience. I'm not an us, our, or we person at all. And in fact,
can I come back on that again? That's not really in question at all. What I'm asking is, because you are doing this in the way you're doing it, and it's not ego-based, what would you do could you imagine perhaps you're on national television, primetime news, whatever it might be, and you've got a 10-second opportunity to put in whatever your killer line would be to get your overall message out to everybody without wanting to put you on the spot. If that was happening now, what would that killer line be? For example, have a number of people listening tonight for whom this is entirely new. So what would your point be to them? Because they wouldn't grasp the deeper philosophies that we're touching on.
Well, it's like David Icke getting his 2 opportunities on Wogan, specifically the second one.
Yeah.
Right. Guess what? It's 7 o'clock. Terry Wogan, Michael Tsarion's on it. They give you all of 6 seconds. I would look in the camera and I would turn to the crowd and I go, my name is Michael Tsarion. For those who haven't heard of me, my website is michaeltsarion.com. If you're interested in my work, go there.
Absolutely.
I would not get into minutia. I would not cast pearls before swine. I know that sounds horrible to a lot of people, but you're talking to me now, so I will give you what I believe. I'm no big believer in collectives. I'm not a person who subscribes to the idea that we're all going to get it.
That's it.
Quite the reverse.
Exactly, yes.
So I would say, I would use that simple time to say, here's who I am, here's my name, here's my number, and if you're interested in more information, I'll be happy to talk to you. I'm not talking to audiences, I'm not infotaining them, I'm not a juggler. Like Bill Hicks said, I'm not going to get out of juggle. I'm not going to bring my circus and start getting to the minutiae about the Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission and you're all under mind control. I'm not going to go down that road. I'm going to say to the individual out there, it's like the great composer Daniel Barenboim. They asked him, when you're out there playing a symphony that you've played millions of times, why can you get up there and do it again and again and again? He goes, because there's always somebody in my orchestra who's playing that piece for the first time, and there's always one person in the audience who's hearing it for the first time. That's all I focus on, and I'm the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Does that answer your question, Mark?
That nails it perfectly. Thanks for that, Michael.
If you want to stay on the call, just because obviously it's probably a bit easier for you, you can just mute your mic if you want to make noise in the background. We'll just keep you in on the call.
Okay.
Great. Excellent. Thanks for that for that input, Mark. Michael, can we keep you for another 15 minutes?
Absolutely. Sure. Go ahead.
All right. Excellent. Obviously, we've probably only touched about 5% of what I've got written down and a lot of our questions that are coming in. A lot of our listeners in the chat room, there's many of them in Ireland. A few more questions about the Irish Republican Brotherhood. I'm just scanning here, so if I get anything wrong, I apologise. But there's one that says, would he implicate the current head of the IRB? And what do you specifically know, or if you don't, do you know anything about the turning of the sovereign seal?
No, I don't know anything about that, and I would have to study these cases individually. I have no faith in these people. I was going to say earlier that Sir Roger Casement, who was one of the prime movers in the early Republican movements, was a Knight of the Garter. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Another close associate of, I think he was the secretary at the time to Michael Collins, or he was a very, very, people can contact me later for his name, but another one of these characters had was made into a Knight of Rome or something like that. These were high level elites. They were more shadowy, right? You have the Michael Collins out front and the James Connollys and whoever out front. But then you've got to think about who are all these other guys behind the scenes. You see, this is what fascinates me. And I have no faith in any of these people. I look for certain things. I look for these affiliations. I look for, whether they were shot down. I look for what they did when they were alive. I look for their family, who was in their family, past and present. And that doesn't mean just because they were a lord that automatically means that they, didn't have Republican sympathies. We know that many aristocratic people loathed what was going on in Ireland and tried to help, but at the same time, you've got to wonder about some of these other weird things. I just have this kind of skeptical mind that looks at certain things as, why did Eamon de Valera just only spend a year in jail? Why did some of the greatest freedom fighters in those days get shot down while other more duplicitous characters live forever, this kind of thing. I look at these kinds of things, and remember, we can't know for sure. I'm not you don't have access to the very secret documents that these people have hidden, but there are general patterns, and in one, you can't just use one instance, but you can gain, over time, a certain understanding of what took place.
Yeah, absolutely.
They wanted to destroy Ireland. These statutes of Kilkenny, the penal laws, the whole of Cork was burned to the bloody ground. Every woman and child was immolated and burned to the ground. I had a previous host one time ask me about why are the guys today, the people who are the world controllers, they've upscaled their evil. They're just so evil now. They weren't as bad before. I said, what are you talking about? I come from a country in which entire cities, same in Dresden, go to Dresden, women and children, firestorms 50 feet high, people incinerated. Go back to the Wicca, like Mark was asking. My God, the mass murder of people. You can't have an evil archy existing in the way it exists today without the removal of those who would have stood against it. So that's what genocide's all about. It's the removal of those who would have stood against the tyrannies of the present.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the IRB in relation to all these questions, so I apologise, folks, if I didn't quite get your points over properly. I'm going to give you 2 or 3 of these questions. You can take a hit at either of them or cover them all if you want to give it a go. Lawrence Gardner died on the 10th of August. What do you think of his work? I know you generally don't like getting dragged into giving your opinion on other people's work, but that's the one there. How does it feel to be away from Northern Ireland? And we also have, do you think the food we eat today was genetically engineered thousands of years ago?
Yeah, I'm not the specialist on that, but there's a fantastic teacher on that. His name I can't remember right now. He's from England, who specializes in the crops and the grains that arose in Mesopotamia, and then, might have been genetically modified. I know this guy's done interviews. He's a specialist on that. It's very interesting. I think that they were, yeah. When it comes to Ireland, I'm not away from it. I'm always going back. I have a family living there, what's left of them, the sane ones. And, Ireland is many things for me, right? I don't think that Ireland is a place that I think is true anymore. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's, the physical terrorism in the north of Ireland is over, but there's now economic terrorism. You can do more with the almighty dollar to bring people to their knees than you can with guns. It's just different forms of waves of tyranny. So I have a very elaborate theory about what's going on in the north of Ireland, why it was partitioned in the first place. Again, back to the Devil era, Michael Collins conflict, why that conflict arose in the Irish Republican Army, I think was, again, British intelligence. I think De Valera worked for British intelligence and removed Collins so that he wouldn't continue to advocate the Free State, which was a good step in the right direction and would have been done peacefully. When they knew that Michael Collins was running around like an orangutan with his IRA henchmen killing and shooting, that's all right. But the moment that he started to think and act in a more civilized way, right, and go towards things in a peaceful way, they knew they had to get rid of him because they don't want that. They want guys in denim jackets putting bombs under innocent people's cars. They want conflict control. Well, they knew that Collins was now no longer their guy for that, so they had to be removed, right? So there's an elaborate theory of the way that these secret societies have operated in the country, in the land of Ireland, has to be taken on board. That means looking in individual historical characters. It also means paying attention to what's going on right now in the land. What is happening right now with the unlimited immigration of Slavic people into Northern Ireland and the taking of all the jobs up there? That needs to be looked at. What's that all about? It needs to be looked at the power of John Hume and who he is and who he really works for, right? And Trimble, why did Trimble give away why did he rescind his awards? You see, what does he know that, from an insider's point of view, and why the Americans were so deeply involved? There's a lot of individual questions that could be looked at. My main speciality is more of the ancient history, the roots of things, to show you the general trend, looking at the symbolism, because that's that was an inroads for me when I knew nothing, just walking around the streets of Ireland looking at this weird symbolism. It turned out all to be Masonic and whatever else. That's always been a fascination for me. And then you said the first question was what?
Lawrence Gardner.
Oh, Lawrence Gardner. Well, yeah, I mean, I've drawn on some areas of his work. I think he was definitely an insider, and he was working for very elite and shadowy royal figures. Yeah. Content of his books are definitely worth reading. Again, from a scholastic point of view, you can read all sorts of people because you need all types of voices. You need to get your arms around a lot of different things. I think his main issues and problems I had when I was writing my Irish Origins books was that his chronology of the dynasties was off. Either that's deliberate obfuscation or it's just like so many. He's not the only one, you see. Vast amount of the scholars have a fallacious chronology. This is an inbuilt problem with Egyptology. It's not deliberate in most cases, of the actual flow of the dynasties one to the other. This is just a scholastic point. But other than that, I think his books were very valuable. But I will add this. Do you remember earlier on we were talking about how the establishment needs to release information under their own publishing and under their own auspices that they know is already being leaked by other maverick sources? Uh-huh. I generally think that that's what the Gardner falls under. I may be wrong, but I believe that the timing of when his books come out, it just so happens that Ahmed Osman, Mustafa Gadala, and Ralph Ellis and a few others were writing on the similar material, exposing the Israelite